Well, good afternoon. My name is Councillor Gavin Nicholl and I will be chairing the meeting today. So welcome to this hybrid meeting of Scrutiny and Audit Committee. And I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed to the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphone when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council website. Prior to the commencement of the business and the relevant item, I have received a request to speak from Stephen Morrison and Katrina Ness with regards to the agenda item number 4, the petition traffic concerns at Baltic Street, Mill Street, Mount Road and Rosemount Hill, Montrose. Are the members happy to grant this request? That appears to be okay. The request is granted. Right, item 1, apologies and substitutions.
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Craig Fotheringham and Councillor Derek Wan, with Councillor Tommy Stewart substituting. Thank you.
Item 2, declarations of interest or statements of transparency. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, it's agenda item number 4, report 7125. I received the petition from Mr Morrison and brought it into the Council. I also put him in touch with Craig Hudson of the Roads Department prior to this to discuss this situation.
And you will stay in the meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Convener. Just a declaration of transparency, really. One of the petitioners today is a friend and former colleague of mine, but we've not had any engagement over the content of the petition, so I will stay in and participate. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Any more? No more. Minutes of the last meeting. Everybody read and okay there? Agreed? Thank you very much. Item 4. This is the petition for the traffic concerns at Baltic Street, Mill Street, Mount Road and Rose Hill, Montrose. So we're going to do the request to speak. We'll get Stephen Morrison and Katrina Ness to come forward. Now you have 10 minutes to put your case forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for allowing us the time to present to you today. It's much appreciated. We are here on behalf of local residents to highlight the ongoing issue of speeding traffic and heavy vehicles using Baltic Street, Mill Street, Mount Road and Rose Hill as a rat run. Despite concerns raised over the years, little action has been taken and we are asking for your support in making these streets safer. The background is in 2015 or thereabouts, maybe 14 or 16, but about there, Councillor Duff arranged for a traffic survey on Baltic Street. The results clearly showed excessive speeds, categorising vehicles into speed brackets of 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60. Then the term used was inappropriate speeds. However, despite this data, no action was taken to improve safety. In 2024, Councillor Stewart arranged another survey, but this time the results were presented in percentiles rather than real speed data. This method disguises the real issue. Let's be clear, the way speed is recorded and presented is misleading. This is not about average speeds, it's about dangerous, excessive speeding that is being ignored. By focusing on percentiles rather than actual speed brackets, this could be masking the reality of reckless driving on our streets. The survey results are now categorised in the percentile plus 5%, plus 10%, plus 15% miles per hour, which only highlights speeds over 23 miles per hour, despite the legal limit being 20. This excludes showing the worst offenders, drivers who are far exceeding the speed limits, posing a direct threat to pedestrians and residents. This is not just an administrative issue, it's a failure to recognise a serious public safety risk. The current method of reporting may well look good on paper, rather than reflect the daily reality of dangerous driving that residents witness firsthand. The real impact on our community. This area is not just a through road, it's a residential community with high pedestrian traffic. Every day, these roads are used by children walking to and from Montrose Academy, South Esk Primary School and Lochside Primary School. The Montrose Academy students also use it to head up to the High Street for lunch. Families, elderly residents and vulnerable pedestrians. There are 2 nurseries, a care home and sheltered housing along the route. Despite council claims that there are few recorded accidents, this does not reflect reality. Accidents are only recorded when police are involved. Speaking to residents, many have experienced damage to parked cars, near misses and collisions that go unreported. I have personally had my car damaged twice and witnessed a collision in Mill Street. Residents who signed the petition have shared alarming experiences, including damage to vehicles due to speeding, accidents at the Rose Hill Mount Road junction causing injury. Parents are fearing for their children's safety when crossing roads when drivers exceed speed limits. The stretch between Rose Hill and Mount Road junction, with North Street being particularly dangerous due to its width, which encourages higher speeds. Heavy vehicles are congesting and causing safety hazard. Baltic Street is daily used by large trucks making deliveries to Argos and Screwfix. These vehicles have to unload in the street, blocking sight lines and creating congestion. The positioning of the trucks, only 15 metres from the car park entrance, creates a significant safety hazard. Vehicles exiting the car park are unable to see approaching traffic from the left due to the obstruction, greatly increasing the risk of accidents. The situation is particularly dangerous as drivers are forced to make decisions without full visibility, which could result in near misses or collisions. Immediate action is needed to mitigate this risk to ensure safe visibility for all road users. Large trucks and industrial machines are now using the route as a shortcut to and from the docks to Broomfield Industrial Estate, adding even more heavy vehicles and industrial machines into an already congested area. Many streets in Montrose have traffic calming measures, such as speed islands, digital speed warning signs, speed humps. However, Baltic Street, Mill Street, Mount Road and Rose Hill, despite being highly residential, have had no such intervention. I contacted the Council to understand the decision-making process behind implementing traffic calming measures, but did not receive a comprehensive answer. Specifically, I asked about Panther Crescent, what was told information was no longer available. I also requested statistics for Hillside, but received no further response. The lack of transparency raises serious questions about how these measures are allocated and why some areas receive intervention while others do not. The inconsistent speed limits in Montrose, 20 miles an hour through Hillside in the town centre, 30 miles an hour on the Brechin Road, despite it being a high number of houses. The lack of consistency confuses drivers and weakens enforcement. The logic behind speed zoning is unclear. The size of the signage in Rose Hill, in Mount Road, in Mill Street, in Baltic Street is very small compared to some other areas. With Police Scotland confirming they will not reinforcing the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. The responsibility for public safety now rests with Angus Council. The Council has a duty to ensure appropriate safety measures are in place to protect the residents. Addressing this issue is important to mitigate risks and uphold safety. Accurate and transparent speed reporting that reflects excessive speeding, traffic calming measures such as speed humps, clearer signage and digital indicators, restrictions on industrial traffic using the roads as a shortcut, a review of inconsistent speed limits across Montrose to ensure safety for all residents, clear accountability decision-making on where traffic calming measures are implemented with publicly available justifications. This is not just about statistics, it's about safety. The lack of recorded accidents does not mean the dangers don't exist. Residents are experiencing these issues every day, which has a well-being impact on their lives. We need real solutions before a serious accident occurs. We are appealing to you, our elected members, to support our action by implementing safety restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Morrison. If you stay seated a moment, there may be some questions from the councillors to you, if that's okay. Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for the spokespersons? Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation. I was just wanting to plumb down a little bit into the lack of responses you said you got on a couple of your questions. Would you say it was more that the replies were sort of not specific enough, or did you get no replies at all? Thank you.
I did get replies, and if we go back to the beginning in 2015, we did get a breakdown of the results, and it did show there was excessive speeding to the point that they used the word inappropriate speeds. After Councillor Duff put me in touch with Mr Hudson, I communicated with him to the point that I just gave up, because I was sorry, I was never going to win, and I think I told him that at the end. We'll just have to agree to disagree, and I'll have to do what I have to do, and we've done what we'll have to do now. As for the results on how the decision making was implemented, because Panther Crescent and Hillside, and I can understand totally why there was intervention there. You come through Hillside, it's 20 miles an hour, they've got digital speed warnings, they've got speed islands, they have got very few houses leading onto the pavement compared to the whole of the route that we're discussing here. But I couldn't get any, I don't want to say sense, but I couldn't get any reasoning from dealing with the council. So I got some, but not nearly enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr Morrison. Any more questions? Yes, Councillor Bell. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, you've contained a couple of photographs in the report, which is really helpful. One of them, it's not clear if there's any poor parking related to double yellows there, and I just wondered if sort of driver decisions are also an added factor in here. People maybe parking on double yellows or too close to a corner, because that's a particularly hard area for enforcement. If drivers are choosing to park in poor places because they're causing a blockage. Is that something that you see? Is that something that you've reported as well? Thanks.
Driver decisions have a lot to do with it. The picture with the industrial machine coming along the road, you have to ask that question is, where's that driver's decision making that he would come through a residential street with a machine like that when there's a good link road would take him around to the industrial estate? So Yes. And where he is in that picture, there's not double yellow lines there, so that cars were legally parked. The other picture with the two trucks, the truck, you can see one of them belongs to Rex. The other truck, he's a metre onto the pavement at the other side of the road, so that's how tight that was.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ronnie Proctor. You're on mute, Ronnie.
Sorry about that. Thanks very much, Convener, and thank you very much, Mr Morrison, for your very full and detailed presentation. The area, residential, is there quite a lot of young children sort of live in the houses? You know, I mean, if there are, how do the children manage to negotiate the roads quite safely?
Yes, there's families the whole length of the route. There's 2 nurseries on the route. The nursery have their children and take them out daily round to the green spaces. So they're using the road, they have to cross the road, and they just have to deal with the traffic. They've got no option. They have to deal with the traffic that's using the road. That industrial machine that you see, if the docks are busy with grain, because Rex now has premises on Broomfield, that industrial machine could pass that street 14 times a day. And where it is in the picture is just where one of the nurseries is. So, and there's families the whole length. It's a very residential area.
Thank you very much. So you could say an accident just about waiting to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? If not, Emily, got any comments on it? Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I mean, obviously, living in Montrose.
Sorry, no comments. Okay. My apologies. So, who do we go?
So, you can take a seat, thank them, and we can take a seat, and we'll move on.
Right, you can take a seat back again now. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Right, we'll move on to item 4. I understood we were actually on item 4, but it's a petition to item 4. So we'll now start at item 4, the Baltic Street, Mill Street, Mount Road and Rose Hill, Montrose. And I've got Alison Watson.
Thank you, Convener. So this report advises members of the petition received in connection with residents' concerns regarding excessive use of Baltic Street, Mill Street, Mount Road and Rose Hill, Montrose, including speeding of vehicles, large articulated vehicles and agricultural machinery. The petition requests that the Council takes immediate action to introduce traffic calming measures. The recommendations before you today are in accordance with Standing Order 13.3, which allows the committee to take a number of different actions. So you can, as noted there, note the receipt of the petition and take no further action, agree that appropriate action has already been taken. You can request a fuller report from the relevant officer. You can ask for a detailed review to be undertaken and to make recommendations to a relevant committee, or you can simply refer this matter to another committee or to Angus Council. Those are the options available to members today. You can now ask questions and thereafter we'll take comments, and also Rhodes colleague Craig Hudson is on the call as well if you have any technical questions. Thank you.
Any questions to the officers? Right, thank you. We've got Chris Beattie. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Just a quick question for Mr. Hudson. In 6.4, it talks about the speed survey that was carried out on Baltic Street in August and September. Can you tell us how many vehicles were actually recorded on that speed survey?
Yep, thanks for the question, Councillor Beattie. The total volume of traffic over the 7 days was 1190 vehicles.
Okay, so 1190 vehicle. Now that's, so 85th percent of speed of 27 miles an hour. That's about 180 vehicles travelling faster than that, faster than 27 miles an hour. That seems an awful lot. You know, that's 26 a day at greater than the 85th percentile. That seems very fast for a road that's meant to be at 20. I'll leave that there just now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell, followed by Councillor Devine.
Thank you. Craig, this has obviously been going on for some considerable time, and I wondered if any of the contractors had been engaged in conversation with our roads officers or with the police around the routes that they use, if they've been encouraged to use particular routes and that has slipped, or if there's an opportunity to take that forward. And I notice, I mean, I do know the area, but I'm not as familiar with it as a resident or a ward councillor would be in terms of potential for one-way streets or streets that they absolutely must use and routes that they must avoid. Councillor Proctor and I have very similar problems around timber lorries in our ward that is very frustrating because they do tend to take the shortest possible route. And when that's through the village of Tannadice, for example, it's just crazy. So I just wondered if historically you've had those conversations or if that needs to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bell. I think more recently, when Mr. Morrison got in touch, I agreed to speak to Ricks myself. So spoke at length to Ricks, just asked him what it was they did day to day, their routing, etc. I advised them personally that there was alternative routes and that the preferred route would be for them to head back up to the A92 and to use the Montrose in a relief road. That would alleviate any issues on the residential streets in question. Ricks did make reference to the fact openly that they do use that road, not day to day, but that's up for debate obviously, but that they did use the road, but not all the time. There's issues separately with HGVs and that they require access for loading, etc., to some of the retail outlets in Baltic Street, New Wind. So that's something that we'll have to consider as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. Again, for Craig, as Councillor Bell says, this has been going on for a long time. Obviously, the 20 mile an hour hasn't been there for a very long time, but normally when speeds are taken at that kind of rate, and so many of them at 27 miles an hour, for example, we look at other interventions. Can you tell me if you have looked at any other interventions for these particular streets?
Thanks, Councillor Devine. Not at this stage, not in any great detail. I think the results that we've got for Baltic Street and more of late that we got for Mount Road are pretty reflective of what we get for most 20 mile per hour streets in towns. Traffic calming really depends on excessive speeding and evidence of an accident record. So the accidents we did look at, there was no evidence the causation factors were down to speed. So at this stage, we've not looked at any additional speed mitigation measures for the roads in question.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you very much. Just following up on Councillor Bell's point about engaging with the industries in that area, I fully understand there is a difference between the HGVs, which might be delivering in the area itself, and the very industrial specialist vehicle that we see in the picture. I just wonder if there's a way of disincentivising them from using that road via any kind of speed calming measures or measures that would specifically impact those industrial vehicles and make it, frankly, very difficult for them to use that road? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Kirby. I think that's a fair comment. I think putting those measures in potentially would have that effect, but it was pointed out, I think, I did send correspondence to Mr Morrison that there is the risk associated with that, that there's the potential that some of these vehicles would just take the next adjacent street. If per se, you know, the traffic calming was to put them off, if we did go with traffic calming, there's an awful lot of similar streets nearby that they could choose to use.
Thank you very much. Councillor Proctor.
Thanks very much, Convener. Craig, just on what you said earlier on, you know, you didn't think the recorded speed afforded, you know, sort of traffic calming. But I mean, well, as been reported, there is excessive speed, and I think it's maybe not just the speed the vehicles are going up, but it's the volume of traffic. And both as Councillor Cowdy and Councillor Bell just mentioned, you know, I think that really is the nub of the problem, and that's something we've got to look to see if we can alleviate that. You know, Councillor Bell mentioned the areas up in our rural areas, but this is a completely different area, and you know, it was explained there is a density of, you know, nurseries and young children about, and I think it's something that really we should look earnestly at and seeing how we can negate these large, or certainly the large volume of traffic using the roads. Some of the heavy vehicles may have to go there. Okay, that's fair enough, but there's others who don't, and you quite rightly said they could use the link road, and I think we must really try and go down that avenue and get people to act in that manner.
You're replying to that, Mr Hudson?
Yeah, again, I think, well, just perhaps for context, I do have some additional information regards the speed. So I agree with Councillor Proctor in terms of the volume of traffic. So we're looking at 1,190 vehicles over a 24-hour period. But in terms of speed bands, 710 of those vehicles were recorded between 21 and 30 miles per hour. 48 were recorded at 31 to 40. And just the one vehicle was recorded, which is silly speed at 41 to 50 miles per hour. But again, I would just repeat the point that potentially asking, well, or advising some of this traffic to go elsewhere, there is that risk that they could just continue to use some of the adjacent residential streets with similarities. So.
Thank you very much for your... any comments then? Any more questions, sorry? Right, any more comments then?
Thanks, Convener. Originally, I was thinking that I would go for option number 1 and take no action, but on the basis that the member officer group on speeding could look at this. But when I read it further, there's clearly an awful lot more has to be done. So I would recommend number 3, requesting a fuller report from the relevant officer, Craig, and looking at a much wider approach to this. And I do think we have to look at encouraging them to use different roads, but I don't want just to leave this. I think it needs to be looked at much more in the round, because obviously, I mean, what we've heard today has been very clear in the difficulties of a very residential street with a lot of children involved. Something has to be done here. Thank you.
So that's option 3 you're speaking about?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I'd like to second that, and I completely endorse what Councillor Devine has said. I would like to see that report be solution focused, that benefits the residents that live in these streets and other road users, and includes conversations with the businesses that are using that route to perhaps negotiate alternative routes. I know traditionally we're not a local authority that uses speed bumps, And I completely understand that our blue light colleagues don't like speed bumps because they're dangerous at speed, and particularly if you're a passenger in an ambulance, it's not good. But there are other alternatives, I think, and I do think it has rumbled on long enough, pardon the pun. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, having I live in the town, and obviously in my role out with being a councillor, I'm travelling about quite a bit, and this is a busy route. More so with children, as Mr Morrison mentioned, coming from the school. It's very busy. It's the main route from Montrose Academy up to the High Street. It gets very congested during it, even at nights. You know, there's cars parked right along the route, and there is an issue with speeding. I mean, I've witnessed that, possibly not as much in Baltic Street, but the further along the route that you get towards Mount Road, Rose Hill, the speeds do considerably increase. And something does need to be looked at here. So I would be of mind to actually move recommendation 3 and 4.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. Just to echo Councillor Stewart, this is a busy street. There are cars parked on both sides. It's heavily residential. Well, it's mainly residential. And there's a lot of activity there. We can see from the figures that there's a lot of traffic coming. And there's two sides to this. It's not just speeding traffic. It's also the type of traffic on it as well. So there's not just a one... there's not just a one issue here, but something does have to be done. It is very, very busy at all times of the day, and there are blind spots. And as Mr Morrison has said, 2 nurseries, you can see nursery teachers out with children, and you know, when you have cars parked legally, because there's no yellow lines, possibly, you know, visibility is very poor. Even somebody travelling at 30 miles an hour, there is no time. So something certainly does need to be done, and I would echo Councillor Stewart in recommending 3 and 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I think there's one part that's been completely missed out here, and that is the attitude of drivers. Ultimately, they're the ones that are responsible for the speeds that they drive at. And if it comes to enforcement, then obviously that's what we have to do. It's worth remembering as well that speed limits are they're limits. They're not a target. You need to be able to drive at the most appropriate speed within that limit. And having spent a lot of time driving around Baltic Street, Mill Street, and those other roads in my previous role as a driving instructor, there are some particularly tricky parts there, some tricky junctions, as mentioned in 6.3, where there were accidents, where you've got a narrow one-way street going to a two-way road at a crossroad with 2 stop signs. They're particularly difficult junctions to get out of which way you're turning. So a lot more emphasis needs to be put on the standards of people's driving. From us as a local authority, what can we do? So with that, I would agree with Councillors Gall and Stewart with recommendations 3 and 4, and certainly look at if there's anything else that we can do as a local authority. Then I think the onus is on us to be able to do that if we can.
Councillor Olsen, can you come in?
Thank you. It's just to confirm in terms of recommendation 4, undertaking a detailed scrutiny review. That's something that audit would be required to do within the council. So just to clarify that would be the position. If members are minded to have information from the relevant roads officers, I would suggest that recommendation 3 would cover that, whereas 4 would be the internal audit. So just to give that advice.
Thank you for clarifying that. Councillor Beattie.
Yep, thanks, Convener. Alison, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say. So I think our roads officer is probably best able to deal with this. So I would throw my weight behind Councillor Bell and Councillor Devine and go for option 3.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ronnie Proctor.
Thanks very much, Convener. I'd go with the local members on this and go for option 3, but whatever option is adopted, we must get action taken, you know, PDQ. We've got to take action very quickly before something happens, some innocent child is injured, or there's more damage caused to vehicles that are parked in that street, legal parked properly, I may say. And I think taking into account what Councillor Ross Gregg said is a very important factor too. Education is very important, but I go with the local members, and I would support option 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just, I guess what I'm thinking is we want some imaginative, like out-of-the-box thinking, because as Mr. Hudson's pointed out, issues perhaps would involve knocking onto another street. And I guess number 3, a report from the relevant officer. Would that not just be Mr. Hudson explaining the current position that we're in, or would he be able to go and look at those kind of alternative solutions that I think is what we're looking for? Sorry, I appreciate that's a question. I just think it might be good to clarify that at this point. Thank you.
Yep, Mr. Hudson, sorry about coming back at comments as a question, but could you clarify?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, Councillor Kennedy, I think we would probably approach it on the basis of an options appraisal, as we've done for previous sort of similar circumstance, and just look at what options potentially that there are that we could bring in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Convener. And just to confirm, if the recommendation 3 was to proceed, members could agree that what you want to see in that report, so that could be worded into it. And also, I know that Councillor Devine, I think, referred to the review that's currently ongoing, so that the issue of traffic calming and other measures across Angus is being looked at. So there is that option as well for members to consider that, although I know, Councillor Devine, you said you wanted maybe this to be looked at out with that, but just mentioning that as another option. Thank you.
Can I come back on that? I mean, the member officer group is really looking at a policy across Angus, and now we have a 20-mile-an-hour limit here, and therefore I think it's really important that while speed has been an issue, clearly, it's much more looking at how we can prevent people doing these speeds, and there are different interventions that can be used. So that's why I went just for 3.
Thank you very much. Is there any more? Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, thanks, Vice Convener. It was just following on from what Councillor Gregg had mentioned earlier in regards to a lot of the issues here is down to driver behaviour. And while I fully appreciate that and agree with that, if we don't have Police Scotland enforcing the 20-mile-an-hour limits, then I would agree with what Mr. Morrison said when he spoke. It then falls to us as a local authority to try and change this driver behaviours or put obstacles in there in the way to sort of counteract the problems that we're having on this street with speeding and whatever. So on that basis, I would be happy to go with recommendation 3.
Thank you very much. It appears that recommendation 3 is the chosen one, but as Alison Watson said, there could be beefing up our recommendations to it. Has anybody got any comments on increasing it?
Yeah, just as Mr. Hudson mentioned, he could bring forward an options appraisal for that. I'd be happy with that.
Councillor Bell?
That's what I was going to propose. Thanks.
Tommy beat you. Well, there appears to be no more comments on it, and it appears that we're going for option 3 with the appraisal, and that should be that item finished. So, Mr. Morrison and Mrs. Ness, you can stay for the rest of the meeting if you want, or you can go. It's no reflection on us if you go. Right. Item 5, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Quarterly Monitoring Report for the period of 1st October 24 to the 31st of December 24. And we've got Alan Love reporting on it.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Convener and committee members. By way of introduction, for those I have not yet met, I'm Group Commander Alan Lowe. I have recently taken up post as Group Commander for the Angus area in a temporary capacity until June this year. Before going on to the quarterly monitoring report, firstly, the local senior officer, Area Commander Brian Todd, sends his apologies for being unable to attend today's meeting and has provided me with a short strategic update to provide to you. The first topic of the strategic update is regarding SFRS strategy. Due to the Strategic Service Review Programme, or SSRP for short, being carried out, last year the SFRS Board made the decision to postpone the development of the new strategic plan and new local fire and rescue plans. We're now seeking feedback to help develop our upcoming strategic plan with a public consultation, which launched on the SFRS website on Wednesday the 5th of February and will go on until Wednesday the 2nd of April. You should have received an email from LSO Todd with a link to this. The draft plan, which will now be referred to as the SFRS Strategy 2025 to 28, outlines the Board and Chief Officer's priorities, which will be reflected through a number of key objectives for our service. Each objective includes a desired outcome, what we define as success, and our plan to achieve these goals. The strategy marks the first steps in an ongoing journey towards becoming a leading, sustainable and modern fire and rescue service for Scotland. Our strategy will be carried out through the SFRS 3-year delivery plan. This document will outline how we will meet our goals over the next 3 years. It will list the key activities we will focus on each year to achieve our objectives. Once the strategy has been approved, the LSO will start to develop our SFRS local fire and rescue plan, considering local priorities for our area based on any potential change proposals from the Strategic Service Review Programme and the priorities of our strategic plan. The second topic of the update relates to the Strategic Service Review Programme itself. The SSRP process continues with around 30 options for change being progressed to evaluation and appraisal at the end of April, with a view to these being launched for public consultation in late June, early July. LSO Todd will keep you updated on the progress of this. The final topic for the strategic update regards the scrutiny report and our use of our Power BI tool. The new Power BI tool will now provide a local scrutiny report template. This will replace our legacy Excel templates and aims to standardise scrutiny reporting for Scotland. So you might ask why we've developed this report. The Service's business intelligence strategy sets out the principles of business intelligence within the SFRS, including that we have a single version of the truth, good design and sound methods, and we use data as an asset. Our current process is a laborious and manual process, and reporting is not consistent across the country. Organisational review and consultation have identified the need for an automated and standardised reporting approach in each area. Additionally, our ClickView LSO analytics tool is at the end of its life and cannot be maintained. All of this means that as an organisation, we need to move away from legacy reporting, where different areas are manually creating their own scrutiny reports each quarter, and instead transition to using automated and standardised reporting that will also allow us to provide local context. The new format will continue and provide the information in the current report, but will be in a different format. The new template will be implemented for the Q1 reports, and we will be happy to take any feedback on this to ensure that the committee are provided with the information that you require. And that concludes the strategic update from Area Commander Brian Todd. If I can now take the membership to page 64 of the combined meeting report. Looking at the headline indicators, we have 6 green, 2 amber and 4 headline indicators at red. I'll now provide some background into the indicators. A brief highlight on page 65, there was a total of 292 incidents within the Angus area during Q3. For some context, 147 of those were false alarms. 106 of these 147 were from system or equipment faults. 39 were calls made with good intent, and the remaining 2 were malicious calls. There were 32 unwanted fire alarm signals within these incidents within Q3, and more detail will be provided regarding this in headline indicator number 10. If I can take you to pages 66 and 67, starting with headline indicator 1, accidental dwelling fires. The report is sitting at green for that for now. There were 22 accidental dwelling fires during Q3, which is above the 3-year average of 16. The majority of these are attributed to cooking or combustibles located on or near a heat source. The majority of our accidental dwelling fires caused minimal fire damage and were limited to the room of origin. And for context, 17 of the 22 incidents were limited to the item ignited first. Of the other 5 incidents, 2 were caused by faulty appliances, 1 by careless handling of equipment, 1 by intentional burning out of control, and 1 was by an unknown cause. 4 of the 22 accidental dwelling fires were in Montrose, 4 in Kirriemuir, 3 in Arbroath, 3 in Forfar, with the remaining 8 spread across the remainder of Angus. There were 0 accidental dwelling fire fatal casualties and 4 ADF non-fatal casualties during Q3. Based on our targets, we're showing green for headline indicator 2, which is ADF fatal casualties, and red for headline indicator number 3, which is non-fatal casualties. The 4 casualties came from 4 different accidental dwelling fires, all of which were quickly dealt with by crews from across Angus. 1 casualty self-referred to hospital for minor burns to fingers, 1 casualty was treated by SAS crews for burns to hands, and 2 casualties were treated for minor smoke inhalation. Crews continue to provide a post-domestic incident response to affected premises, and crews across Angus carried out 178 Home Fire Safety visits in Q3, with 75 of those designated as high risk prior to the visit being carried out. I'll now take you to page 68 and 69 of the report, and headline indicator 4, which is for non-domestic fires, which is currently sitting at green. There were 2 accidental fires in relevant non-domestic buildings during Q3, which is in line with the average for this quarter. 1 fire started due to a faulty tumble dryer within a building and was quickly dealt with by fire crews. The other was a faulty electrical compressor in an external storage unit of a hospital. Again, crews quickly dealt with this incident. There was 0 non-domestic fire fatalities and 0 non-domestic casualties during Q3. Based on our targets, we're showing green for headline indicator 5 and red for headline indicator 6, which is non-domestic casualties, and that is based on a spike in a previous quarter. During Q3, the Angus Fire Safety Enforcement Officer carried out 24 full or post-fire audits, 7 consultations and 9 specific visits. Within the aforementioned audits, of the 24, 20 were in care homes and 4 were audits to houses in multiple occupation, with an additional short fire post audit carried out at a hospital. Moving on from there, I'll take you to page 70 and 71 of the combined report. Headline indicator 7, RTC incidents, which is sitting at green. During Q3, we attended 10 RTC incidents to assist and support other partner agency responders in the release and extrication of occupants from vehicles, which is below the 3-year average for the quarter. There were 4 casualties rescued and provided initial care in 3 of these 10 RTCs. All 10 RTCs were spread across Angus with no obvious trends in roadways or locations. 2 of the 10 RTCs occurred in built-up areas in Angus towns, 6 were on rural roads, with 3 RTCs recorded on the A98 Dundee to Aberdeen dual carriageway. Quarter 3 has seen a significant drop below the 3-year average for the quarter for RTC casualties. The 3 RTCs involving casualties occurred on rural roads. One of these involved 2 casualties given precautionary checks by SAS crews. One involved the casualty being treated for minor cuts on scene before being taken to Ninewells Hospital by SAS, and one involved a motorcyclist where the casualty was transported to Ninewells Hospital by Scottish Ambulance Service for his injuries. We're showing red for both headline indicators 8 and 9, which is for fatal and non-fatal RTC casualties. Again, we are showing red for spikes in the previous quarters within the year. Angus stations have attended a further 56 special service incidents in quarter 3, not including these 10 RTCs. The majority of the other incidents, 32, were to gain entry due to concern for the occupant within, along with 5 to assist animals and 2 for flooding assistance, with a further 2 for extrication incidents. If I can take you now to pages 72 and 73. And we are at headline indicator 10, which is for UFAS incidents, which is sitting at green. So for this quarter, SFRS, as referred to earlier, attended 32 UFAS incidents, unwanted fire alarm signals, which is significantly below the 3-year average for the quarter. This is principally due to the implementation of the time for change unwanted fire alarm signals policy, and as the table there describes the premises types that had the most call-outs due to UFAS incidents for the quarter 3 reporting period. That was 11 for residential care homes, 5 for hospitals and medical care, 4 for sheltered housing, and 3 for residential care. I'll take you to pages 74 and 75 of the report. For headline indicators 11 and 12, there were 9 deliberate primary fires reported during quarter 3, which is above the 3-year average. This included 5 vehicle fires, 4 of which were cars and 1 a motorhome. 2 fires occurred within the same domestic premises within 2 days. Our community teams worked with partner agencies in this instance to try and improve the safety outcomes for the individual involved. The remaining 2 incidents were minor in nature. One involved 2 bales of hay on fire and another rubbish on fire on a vacant property. For headline 11, we're showing amber. There were 22 deliberate secondary fires across Angus reported in quarter 3, which is above the average for the quarter. 7 of the 22 occurred within the Forfar area, and 4 of these incidents spaced within an 8-day period, which was, for context, very early in the quarter from the 4th to the 10th of October. 6 occurred in Arbroath, with the rest spread in small numbers across the Angus area. Based on our target of keeping the number of deliberate secondary fires in Angus below 116 each year, we're showing amber for the annual target, despite being marginally above average for incidents of this type for quarter 3. Now take you to page 77, just to cover the community safety engagement programmes going on within Angus for SFRS. Some more specifics of this are covered in the next section. SFRS Angus community action teams and crews continue to be fully engaging with the community, delivering home fire safety visits, and our local authority liaison officers and community safety advocates continue to attend partnership meetings. The Angus Community Action Team conducted bonfire safety talks to rural primary schools, whilst our fire station crews conducted bonfire safety talks to local primary schools within towns. We continue to identify persons at risk and carry out home fire safety visits across our communities. This has resulted in 4 fire retardant beddings being issued to adults at risk. We've had 127 home fire safety visits carried out by the Angus stations and 18 by the Angus Community Action Team. And we continue to attend early screening group weekly meetings to identify vulnerable persons who require home fire safety visits. We've 29 adult protection AB1 referral forms submitted to the Angus Council social work over the quarter, and the local authority liaison officers and community safety advocates attended 13 virtual multi-agency case conferences involving persons identified as vulnerable and at risk. Finally, for the report, I'd like to take you to some notable events over the quarter that have been conducted by our crews across the Angus area. Regarding bonfire night visits, over 3 days in the run-up to bonfire night, Angus Community Action Team partnered with Police Scotland and Angus Trading Standards to visit retailers of fireworks throughout Angus. We ensured retailers were aware of their responsibilities and delivered safety advice in the use of fireworks. There was also a fire skills demonstration at the Kirriemuir Fire Station, where the crew from Kirriemuir ran a 5-day fire skills course in November for students from Webster's High School. This was open to S3 to S6 students who would apply for the course and attend an interview. The students got a small look into the role of a firefighter and the kind of training that we go through. At the end of the week, the students put on a display of what they'd learned for onlooking teachers, parents and senior managers from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and received certificates from LSO Area Commander Brian Todd. Throughout the quarter, CPR awareness sessions were delivered by the Angus CAT team to S1 pupils at Arbroath Academy, Arbroath High School and Brecon High School. This potentially life-saving skill has been delivered to 380 pupils in quarter 3 and a total of 1,430 people in the last 9 months. Angus CAT took part in the Home Safety Roadshow held in Forfar, Brecon and Arbroath, working in partnership with Police Scotland, Angus Small Repairs and Citizens Advice, North East Sensory Services. These organisations have come together to improve the safety and well-being of the community in Angus. Through funding from SGN, Angus CAT were able to supply 37 electric blankets, 52 plug extension cables and generated 27 home fire safety visit referrals. During the first week of October school holidays, Carnoustie Fire Station opened its doors from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock for members of the community to attend. There was a free breakfast available for them and a tour of the fire station and fire and bonfire safety advice given out. Over the week, 300 members of the Carnoustie community attended. And finally, once again, Carnoustie Fire Station opened its doors on Halloween to create a friendly and safe environment for families to attend. There were sweets for attending children and important safety tips for bonfire season delivered. Again, 200 members of the community visited over the course of the 2 hours. And that concludes the quarterly monitoring report for Angus quarter 3. If anyone has any questions.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very, very thorough report as usual, and the recommendations are to note and comment, but I'm sure Alan's open for questions, so we'll start off with Julie Bell, Councillor Cowdy, and then Councillor Devine, BT. Okay.
Thanks, Convener. Well, first of all, I mean, I love the amount of community engagement that you do, and I know from Kirriemuir just how much it's appreciated and how much people get out of that. And congratulations to everyone involved in that. It's really important when we're striving to prevent rather than resolve. But I wanted to pick up on the deliberate secondary fires. I've noticed over the last week or so that there's been an increase in social media activity around drier weather and encouraging people to be aware of the risk of outdoor fires. And I also am hugely aware of the level of muir burn that's on the go at the moment. I can see smoke right across the hills from my kitchen window, which is always quite distressing. And I just wondered if you were able to give me an idea of any of those kind of fires where a level of accelerant has been used that exacerbates the issue. And I know it's high wind today and the smoke is really quite widely dispersed, which always gives me high anxiety. But in terms of that moorland management, in inverted commas, how many of them that get out of hand have actually involved accelerant? Thanks.
Thank you for your question. Offhand, I don't have the exact statistics for that, but what I'll do is I'll endeavour to look into our statistics for secondary fires and such incidents, and I will report back as to how many have involved accelerants. Okay.
Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you very much. So this is a very similar but slightly different question to Councillor Bell, also regarding wildfires. As Councillor Bell mentioned, I saw the warning that went out from the Scottish Fire and Rescue about particularly high risk of wildfires just now. I wondered around your outreach efforts. You do such brilliant work with schools and different groups to raise awareness. I wondered if you do, or you have the capacity to do, any specific outreach on the risks of wildfires in an accidental capacity when young people, for example, are out and about camping. Thank you.
Again, thank you for your question. At this time of year, wildfires and fires in the open will come as part of our spring thematic action plan, our spring TAP. So within that, we have relevant key safety messaging, which includes prevention to key members of our community. So that message is conveyed as part of our spring TAP.
Thank you for that. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Convener. Like Councillor Bell, I always appreciate the partnership working that goes on and the preventative work that you do. And I'm looking at page 77 and the work that was done around bonfire night, fireworks, I think worked, because I definitely wasn't so aware of so much noise, and my dog was much happier. But my question is, just do you ever, I see you issued fire retardant bedding. Do you tell people about fire blankets, which are quite neat little things that you can have in your kitchen? I've just bought one myself, and I just think it's something that isn't too expensive and could be either provided or at least suggested to people. Thank you.
Again, thank you for your question. In relation to providing fire blankets, I think we're very careful in the guidance and advice that we give to people in responding to fires in their home, and that what we do recommend is that people, we try and prevent fires before they happen by giving suitable home fire safety advice, but we want people to keep themselves safe ultimately. So we would kind of recommend that people, if they do discover a fire and they can't manage it themselves, that they get themselves out, they close doors behind them, and they call 999 and request our help and assistance. So whilst fire blankets do have their place, we sometimes don't like to recommend fire blankets for everybody in case of any kind of misuse. We do look to kind of make sure that people keep themselves safe, get themselves out, call 999 so that we can respond to an emergency.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beattie.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, this is really a comment rather than a question. No, it was just to congratulate on the work you've been doing at the high schools with the CPR training. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a very difficult skill to do properly, and it's really good to see the young people getting a chance to do that firsthand. I know it's difficult, but, well done.
Thank you for that. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Convener. Just with a slight increase in deliberate primary fires, I know there was also a fire, I believe from social media, deliberately started at a cafe in Arbroath within the last 48 hours. And, just with things like park benches, bins that have heard over the term being deliberately started, do you think we need perhaps some sort of national campaign, like, we've got campaigns for use your seatbelt? Do we need something to try and curb the fire? It seems to me that areas around firework nights, well, like Glasgow and Edinburgh, where youths playing around with fireworks. Okay, that's not an issue here in Angus, but it seems to be that some youths thinks it's acceptable to play around with fire, and do we need to combat that? Thank you.
Thank you. We do, I can assure you, we do look at our statistics, and that includes deliberate fire setting. We do work with our community action teams to identify any specific problem areas. Where we do identify them, we work with our colleagues, closely with our colleagues in Police Scotland to identify any responsible persons. Where we do identify responsible persons for these types of incidents, we will do our very best, along with our colleagues in Police Scotland, to educate them on the safety and the detriment that it causes to our communities and to our environment. So please be assured we do try to identify these trends and we do act on that accordingly.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Ronnie Proctor, you had your hand up. Do you wish to speak?
Thanks very much, Convener. Yeah, it's probably come down. Been up there that long, getting tired. Yeah, thanks very much for that full report. And just a couple of comments and a question. First of all, Councillor Bell, Councillor Cowdy, and Councillor Devine talking about the burning of the land. I attended a seminar last year up at Glenogle. It was run by local estates, and we had two excellent fire officers who were there and gave very good detailed information on how that's all managed. And I'm sure the Fire and Rescue Service has got that well in hand. I'd also like to thank you for your work at Kirriemuir at Webster's High School. I've had loads of very positive comments from staff, from pupils, and indeed from parents. And I think you've maybe got a spin-off on that because it might be helping your recruitment for future firefighters. So good work and keep it up. And my last thing is a question. On page 80 of the report, you talk about gaining successful funding with getting alarms for people who, like myself, are quite deaf. Now, that's very credible. It's not a great amount of money considering what these things cost if it's being spread across Angus, but it is something nevertheless. How is that information being promulgated to the general public? Is there, how are folk getting to know about that? I actually got some time ago the thing, the fire alarm that goes underneath your pillow, and I find it invaluable. But smoke alarms and stuff, people like me who are deaf, you just don't hear it.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Proctor. Regarding the deaf alarms, we do look at work with our partner agencies to identify those at risk, and when we do, where they qualify, try and provide deaf alarms where we can, where available. In terms of how people know about the deaf alarms, we do have information on our SFRS website, but what I will do is I'll find out exactly where our members of community can find out information regarding deaf alarms, and I will get back to you regarding that information, Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Is there any more questions, comments? Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple of questions. One was very similar to Councillor Shepherd's, and it was in terms of malicious calls and deliberate fire raising. And probably what I'm looking for perhaps more ties in with the Police Scotland report in terms of how that's recorded. So I'll pick that up on the next report. But my other kind of question was around the call-outs due to faulty equipment or systems, and I just wondered if our fire rep could maybe just expand on that a little bit more and just explain what, is there any themes coming through there? Is it just old systems? And how quickly are you able to then kind of bring about a positive change to that situation?
Okay, thank you for your question. In relation to that false alarm activations that I referred to at the start of my report, you'll see that there was quite a number of them were caused by system faults, which are in effect equipment and system faults. That includes a variety of causes, examples of which are faults with system apparatus. So, for example, a faulty fire alarm panel, smoke detector, or heat detector. It could also be caused by wrongly detecting a contaminant such as an aerosol or dust or steam or insects. So yeah, they do. These incidents do come from a variety of sources, but some of which I've described there. In terms of our being proactive, what we do is whenever we do attend fire alarms, false fire alarms, we will engage our watch and crew commanders, will engage with the duty holder to give them any advice as to whether where they can, whether the system's appropriate, if they're in the appropriate positions and so on. We will always try to prevent reoccurrences where we can of these false alarms, and by doing so we will then free up time for our other work in our community, such as home fire safety visits, training for firefighter safety, and also by reducing these we will actually reduce the road risk of responding to unnecessary blue light journeys. We can rest assure you as well that our Fire Safety Enforcement Officer for Angus and the Fire Safety Enforcement team in general will always look at our statistics where we do have primary repeat offenders for equipment and system faults. We will engage with them to try and proactively reduce these incidents.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, comments? If not, is it agreed that we note this report? It's agreed. Thank you very much. On to item 6. The Police Scotland Angus Local Policing Area Quarterly Report for the period 1st of October 2024 to the 31st of December 2024. And we welcome along Grace Ewing to our first meeting here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Deputy Convener. And before I hand over to Chief Inspector Ewing, I'll just provide a couple of updates from Police Scotland. So, firstly, I'm really pleased to present the Quarter 3 report. And as you've highlighted, I'm joined by Grace today, who took on the role as Area Commander yesterday for Angus. And brings with her a wealth of knowledge and experience from across the partnership within Tayside and also our local knowledge to Angus. She will be a fantastic addition to our leadership team here in Angus. It's only right, though, that I put on record my thanks to Chief Inspector Ross Fitzgerald, who's moved on to another post, but for his services to Angus and across Tayside over recent years, and the additional support that's been provided by Inspector Gary Aitken whilst Ross has had a period of absence. Gary will continue to support Grace in her new role, and my continued thanks to him for all of his efforts. Just a couple of updates for members in relation to some ongoing activity within Police Scotland and our continued work across our estates portfolio and the delivery of our estates master plan. I'm incredibly grateful and thank you to the Chief Executive and Angus Council for temporarily housing my staff within Angus House, and we continue to work in collaboration with my estates partners to ensure that we have a more permanent home across Angus for officers, specifically within Forfar. I will continue to keep members updated as we progress in that space, but hope to have a conclusion within the coming months and towards the end of the year for that permanent location. In addition, I just wanted to provide an update to members that we continue to work across Police Scotland, but specifically within Tayside, around the rollout of body-worn video, which will see Tayside as a division launch first in terms of officers on the street with the body-worn video devices. There is, as you can imagine, a significant amount of work underway to ensure that we're in a place where our officers are trained and equipped with the devices, and we are still planning for that to be rolled out within spring this year. Again, I'll provide specific updates to members in due course with more specific details. But without further ado, I'll pass over to Chief Inspector Ewing. She's going to take us through the Q3 report, and then, of course, we'll both be delighted to take questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Grace.
Good afternoon, Deputy Convener and committee members, and thank you for the warm welcome here today. I don't intend to go through the whole report line by line, but I will obviously highlight some key points from the performance over the Q3 period, starting with page 91, performance on a page. So starting with the Group 4 offences, antisocial behaviour offences and disorder incidents, overall this has reduced by approximately 3.8%, and I'm aware that there will be incidents that go unreported, but with continued community engagements we're seeking out opportunities to understand and tackle these issues, and our partnerships team continue to respond to ongoing emergent issues in this area. I'm aware, as we've just touched on with fire service, that we have had a spate of some willful fire-raising instances across Angus, both in public spaces and derelict sites, and
we're finding that a small core number of youths have been responsible for some of these. 2 youths have been reported to the Children's Reporter, and the community team are working with fire service colleagues and Hillcrest Futures in respect of diversionary projects. I know that there's also been some local investment in respect of lighting and CCTV in the area of the Mire car park, which we welcome, and hope that that improves the area and reduces instances of antisocial behaviour at that specific site, creating a feeling of safety for the wider community. Moving on to Group 1, crimes of violence, we're generally trending downwards with a reduction of approximately 7% in respect of serious assaults and an encouraging detection rate of 78% in this category overall throughout the current year to date. Of the 11 serious assaults this quarter, we have achieved a 100% detection rate, detecting all 11, and common assaults have reduced by 9%, with detection rates being above 64%. Within Q3, there was 10 robberies were reported, which is the same as the previous quarter, and there have been an overall increase over the year to date. However, we are achieving a 74% detection rate in this crime type. For Q3, 4 remain undetected with outstanding lines of inquiry. Therefore, it is hoped that this detection rate will improve. To provide some reassurance around this, most robberies occur within residential properties and occur between individuals who are known to one another, and this can also cause barriers to witness engagement, which is challenging, but the majority of perpetrators will also have likely additional complex addictions. However, please be reassured that the vast majority of our communities will not fall victim to random robberies. CID take ownership of these inquiries to ensure consistency of practice and to improve detections and support our victims. Moving into public protection, over Q3, overall Group 2 crimes, including rape and domestic abuse, have increased in comparison to last year and is currently higher than the 5-year average. However, it should be borne in mind that some of these will be some of these domestic offences are as a result of a proactive approach to victims, and that every crime recorded is not necessarily indicative of the number of victims. It's also important to remember that these figures include new reports of non-recent incidents, which would be over a year ago, which have not occurred in this reporting period. We have a fantastic workforce in this area and strong partnerships, which has improved our support to victims and likely offers more direct routes into engagement and reporting of incidents that might have previously gone unreported. Detection rates are improving, and this demonstrates that the processes in Angus to target perpetrators are working well. Moving into road safety, we have seen a reduction of crimes across the board with a 100% detection rate. During this quarter, there were no fatal or serious injury collisions. RP officers continue to focus on the fatal 5, speeding, mobile phone offences and drink driving, careless driving and seatbelt offences, and are carrying out proactive patrols in our priority routes throughout Angus. You can see details around specific days of action in Q3 targeting uninsured drivers, as well as taxi education and enforcement. We also had the usual festive drink and drug campaign, which saw several persons arrested for various offences across that period. Drug driving is more common than drink driving, which will be partly as a result of advancements in technologies with our drug wipe kits and an attitude that drug driving is possibly thought to be more acceptable by a younger generation. National messaging and tasking will ensure that enforcement continues to stamp this out. And I know that there have been previous requests to separate this data, and that's something I can take away today. Into acquisitive crime in respect of housebreakings, which relates to attempts and instances of intent to steal, has seen an overall reduction from 71 crimes in Q2 to 41 this quarter, with a detection rate of 34%. And this hopefully continues to improve, given a number of undetected crimes that still have some outstanding positive lines of inquiry to be completed. As is recorded, we have seen a significant decrease in the number of non-dwelling housebreakings, with only 3 recorded this quarter compared to 10 in Q2, with an improving detection rate of 66.6%. Regarding motor vehicle crimes, 52 offences were recorded in Q3, down from 68 in Q2, with a detection rate of 32.6%. We do still see a trend of persons travelling from other areas to commit acquisitive crime in Angus and other rural communities, and we've put in place trigger plans whereby neighbouring areas can alert each other to ongoing incidents, and resources are mobilised accordingly with a view to preventing and detecting offenders crossing over into policing and local authority boundaries. A review indicates that a large proportion of these crimes are still under investigation, with a small number of individuals responsible for high numbers of crimes. We have highlighted a notable incident on page 100 in respect to the Chinese takeaways that were targeted during this quarter, where cash and other items were stolen. And following thorough investigation, this resulted in detection of 2 accused persons, which resulted in 1 being remanded in custody. And we have not had a repeat of this targeted offending since. Theft shoplifting continues to show significant increases, and this trend is replicated across the division and even nationally. We have had an increase of 214 crimes recorded since the last quarter, and the detection rate of 69% has improved from the last year to date. Alcohol has been the most frequently stolen item, and a significant number of these crimes are attributed to a low number of high tariff repeat offenders. We are focusing a significant amount of prevention work in this area, engaging retailers, carrying out robust crime prevention advice and encouraging them to take action to safeguard their staff and businesses, looking at means to increase security tactics by either improving CCTV systems, shop layouts and security displays. We've also been requesting CRASBOs, criminal antisocial behaviour orders, on reported cases as a matter of routine now for shoplifters. However, to date we have not had any issued by the courts, and that's something that we will be raising in another forum. That does conclude the highlights of the performance period. I would just like to highlight the continued demand that we have in the mental health space, and the opening that we have in the coming months of the Arbroath Community Wellbeing Centre. This is well underway now, and we know that it's now officially been named the Beacon, with Hillcrest Futures having been successful in their bid as the approved partner. We've assisted with security surveys of the building at this site, and we are participating in tabletop workshops with all partners involved to talk through some likely scenarios and to try to ensure the initial opening goes as smoothly as possible. We're able to share learning from the Perth and Dundee centres and are delighted to support this service, given the benefits we have seen elsewhere and the need for these community supports to assist with safeguarding some of the most vulnerable in our communities. I'm happy to welcome any questions on the report. It does contain a lot of other additional information. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Well, thank you very much for that. Again, a very thorough report as usual, and we've got a few questions for you to answer. Greg? Cowdy? Speed? Yours down. Councillor Bell.
Thanks very much, and thank you, Grace, for the report, and welcome to this committee. And like you, thanks to Ross Fitzgerald for his work in this area in the past. The rural acquisitive crime has been significant in my area, and I'm really grateful to Vicky Crichton and Scott Anderson for helping to raise awareness of that around the community councils in my ward. So if you could pass that back, I'd be very grateful. There are a couple of areas that I was hoping to pick up on in terms of emerging trends around the sexual abuse, sexual offences, and if we're seeing any worrying trends around young people committing offences. I've had some feedback from constituents around a very concerning mindset in young boys, young men, around their treatment of girls in their peer group, around consent and sexual offences like sexting and what have you, particularly linked to some social media personalities. And also around the mental health awareness. I'm really grateful for your contribution to the development of the Beacon. So the Beacon is really about creating a space, a service for people who are in crisis. But also we recognise that the police have been doing way beyond their call of duty in terms of supporting people with mental health problems in the absence of alternatives. So I wondered, in maybe 6 months, a year, it would be possible to see any positive impact on your deployment in that area and the positive outcomes for people who are signposted or taken to the beacon, because that will make a difference on what else you are able to do, but primarily about getting that person to the right help that they need at the right time. So just something to think about for future reporting. It would be really good to see a deeper dive into that. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Probably just a couple of points that I'd pick up on then. The national campaign around Don't Be That Guy, which really focuses around male behaviour and the continued push for education around consent, specifically to young men, but wider sort of sex education across our education facilities. And of course, the gap between individuals leaving education and then moving into work and actually what that looks like. So we continue as a national organisation to provide that education and push those campaigns to really try and change behaviour. We haven't had any specific trend or anything that's been highlighted. I'm supported by a detective superintendent, a detective chief inspector through specifically around public protection, and of course our core members of the chief officer group around the wider protecting people functions within Angus. Should we start to see anything like that, then of course I'd raise it specifically. What we can do and bring to the committee that we've done across other parts of Tayside is a breakdown of ages for offenders, if that would be helpful. We recently did some work in Perth and Kinross, so we'll take that away as an action and we'll pull that in for awareness. In terms of the beacon and the demand, your comments are noted and welcomed, and thank you for that. We will, of course, look at the data once we start to get up and running with the beacon. And of course, as we come back to future committees, we would love to be in a position where we report that our time has been freed because we've got services in the right place for the right people. And that allows police officers to deal with other matters. So again, we'll look at that data when it comes through, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Ronnie Proctor.
Thanks very much, Convener, and thank you very much, Grace, for that excellent report. And like Councillor Bell, I just like to commend our community police officers for attending community councils and making people aware of HARE course. And they actually was handing out little report books, which maybe you don't pick it up on the camera, which are a very, very useful tool to report that and to make sure that those who are reporting keep themselves safe and in no way get involved with HARE coursers. And I really do thank you all for the community police attendance at community councils. My question is on e-scooters. On Saturday, I attended a veterans breakfast in the Forfar British Legion, and I was almost run down by a young lad on an electric scooter. Me being deaf, I obviously didn't hear the thing coming, and he flew past me at a rapid rate of knots. What's the sort of situation about e-scooters on, being used on pavements and on roads in Scotland?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. I anticipated some questions around this topic because I know there has been reports made in various communities across Angus around the increasing use of e-bikes and e-scooters. There's obviously quite a bit of complex legislation around what's classified as a motor vehicle and how they can be modified, and that's something that we will take away and look at refreshing across the board with our staff in response to this. We do run Operation Challenge across the division, which is our response to dealing with e-bikes and e-scooters. And I know that the community teams locally are all looking at pulling together some local days of action to address this emerging trend. So that's something we'll take away from this forum and look to do some proactivity in that space. But we absolutely would look to be seizing these bikes wherever we can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Vice Convener. In a similar vein to Councillor Proctor's questions, a question for the police. I mean, I note on page 17 of your report, which is 102 of our combined papers, a local priority about making our roads safer. I would also hope that that includes our pavements and paths as well, where possible. Like Councillor Proctor has mentioned about the e-scooters and e-bikes, it's certainly something I get lots of complaints about, not here, just in Forfar, but in my role as tenant participation spokesperson in other housing estates throughout Angus. I note and I understand that I believe in Dundee, several of these e-bikes and e-scooters have been seized. Are you able to tell us here, have any been seized within Angus? And if not, why not? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor. And as Chief Inspector Ewan's touched on, we do run Operation Challenge across the division, and we have had some significant challenges within the City of Dundee around the use of e-scooters, which has resulted in some more specific days of action. I don't have the figures for Angus to hand. It's something we'll take away and come back. As I touched on, Grace landed in post yesterday, so she's got a little bit of work to do just to get up to speed, no pun intended. And she'll come back to committee and just provide that update. What I would say is we're absolutely committed to providing the same service across Tayside, and if it's an emerging problem across Angus, whether it be Forfar or one of the other areas, Grace will take that away with her community teams and we'll look to ensure that we deliver similar days of action, which we would hope would result in seizures of these types of vehicles. But of course it requires us to get our hands on the individuals responsible and ensure that they're not roadworthy or not legal in order for us to seize them. So we'll take that away and just come back with one, a plan for what we're going to do, and two, just how many have been seized in the past.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cowdy.
Thanks very much. This is actually just about the way the different crimes are presented in your table, just for clarity. Apologies if I'm missing something really obvious. I just wondered how domestic abuse is categorised away from, for example, serious assault, because obviously it could be both. So, yeah, if you could just explain the difference in how you categorise those crimes, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, so my understanding of this will be that there'll be markers and tags on calls types and how we record our assaults. So an assault that's been part of a domestic incident will have a domestic abuse flag and tag, which will then allow our analysts to break down the different crime types according to if it has been specific to a domestic abuse incident.
Can I come with a supplementary? Thank you. So just to be absolutely clear, nothing that's in the domestic abuse category is being sort of double counted in the serious assault. I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Speed.
Thank you. So it was with regards to the increased theft and shoplifting that we're continuing to see on our high streets. Our high streets are being hit particularly hard. And I was shocked, like Councillor Shepherd mentioned earlier, to see of the deliberate fire setting that took place just a day or so ago. I know that your team is working really hard to support the shopkeepers and businesses on the high street, and I really welcome the criminal behaviour order that you're now applying to cases. I do hope that starts to make a difference within the courts. I just wondered if what does concern me is that our own antisocial behaviour powers are not being exercised at all. There's no antisocial behaviour orders being applied at all within the reporting periods for quite a time now. I just wondered if you'd be able to comment on what difference in perhaps other local authority areas it makes. Does it kind of help prevent and deter because people see that there's a consequence? If you could comment on that would be helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question, Councillor Speed. Yeah, no, absolutely. We have a significant number of antisocial behaviours in Dundee area. I think they've got over 100 at the moment, and it does make a significant difference, you know, because it can impact individuals' tenancies. You know, so yeah, we see a huge benefit to antisocial behaviour orders being issued by our council colleagues, and it just gives us those additional powers to be able to, when we do attend a particular address, or if it's an individual, to be able to put in additional reports in support of their breach of their antisocial behaviour orders, and then obviously when there's powers of arrest attached, take them to court, and it can have significant impacts on them. Like I say, within their family setting, and if they know that that could impact their tenancy and have a wider impact on their family, then it can have a bearing on that.
I'd probably just add into that, if it's okay. Sorry, Grace, having just landed, you know, one of the opportunities will be for her to have brought knowledge around partnerships into Angus, and, you know, building those relationships across the council to take good practice and learning from elsewhere. And we've touched on a number of things we're doing in the space around shoplifting to support retailers. And there's only so much advice and guidance we can provide, is the reality. You know, we do need retailers to help themselves, you know, an extension of this committee to go out to the communities to provide advice around prevention, and we'll continue to do that. But we absolutely will pick up learning from elsewhere and see how we can add it into our approach and action plans within Angus.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate this is a police report, and it's the police representatives that are answering. So maybe not for here within committee, but perhaps offline. I just wondered if the council would be able to respond to that in terms of my kind of ask around us maybe looking at the fact that we're not issuing antisocial behaviour banning orders, and is that something that can be considered?
Is that something for you, Catherine?
Thank you very much for the question. Obviously, these reports are not about council services, so it's not really helpful, because there's nobody on the call from that service today that can take that question this afternoon. However, I do note that the Angus Antisocial Behaviour Strategy is due for renewal in 2026, so there's an opportune period of time now before us in terms of engaging with local partners again to review our antisocial behaviour strategy as a partnership, and we can bring information and reports on that to members in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Yeah, I've got a few points here. It centres around our community policing teams. One of the issues that I'm experiencing in my community, and it gets brought to me by the community councils, is that the community policing teams more often than not are not able to attend. May that be because they're not on shift or for whatever reason. And I just wondered, you know, if they're not on shift, why can we not have other officers who are on shift attend? And it goes back to another thing that was raised quite recently in the community, and it's surrounding these e-bikes. We had a situation, and the officer that attended said it wasn't for him to deal with, it was for the community policing team to deal with, which was a bit bizarre, because I always thought, you know, them being police officers, it wouldn't matter who deals with it. And it seems to be, and I would hope that you can obviously give me a bit of comfort here, there seems to be a variation of how officers in different localities deal with issues regarding these e-bikes. The final point that I wanted to ask about was officers communicating with our housing department in regards to antisocial behaviour. You know, it was before lockdown, our housing department would have a weekly meeting with officers and would get an update if there had been anything over the previous week had happened and whatever. And a lot of the times now we're getting told that our housing department knows nothing about any antisocial incidents that's happened. And I just wondered what the police can do to sort of mitigate that and sort of help that situation. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the question there, Councillor. So there's a couple of points to that, so I'll just pick them up individually. Officers do work different shifts, that's the reality across Tayside, but we clearly provide a 24/7 provision. There are pros and cons for us sending different skill set officers to different meetings, because potentially you get responses like, that's not my job, which is actually really unhelpful. It is, of course, every officer's job to uphold the law, so there is a little bit of education for us to do there. Grace has touched on that around e-scooters. We will pick that up. What I would suggest that we do is, Grace will just have a little bit of a review around our community teams, how they're structured, their attendance at community council meetings. And what I'll not do is commit to being at every single meeting, but we absolutely will ensure that we've got representation or reporting or something so that we're engaging. There is always, of course, the occasion where, unfortunately, threat, risk and harm trumps everything else, and officers may be redeployed. But clearly, if that is the case, then I would look to ensure that we've put an apology in or a reason. So if you allow us the opportunity just to go and look at that and make sure that we're comfortable with what our reporting processes look like. I guess linked to that is that element about the housing and discussions around antisocial behaviour. It's probably a bit of work for us to do around our arrangements for partnership liaison and engagement. We're absolutely committed to working with partners to prevent escalation of problems or stop them happening in the first place. And if that is around information sharing and discussing those issues, then that's absolutely what we'll do. So again, Grace is going to leave lots of actions today, but really right and proper that we just give her the opportunity to have a review of that, if that's all right. Thank you.
If I can just come in again.
Yes, you can go back.
Yeah, one of the issues that keeps coming back to me regarding our local officers is the lack of communication with the public. You know, if things, and the public are saying to me that they don't have the confidence in the police anymore, which that's a concern for me. And you know, if they report incidents, they're getting no feedback. Nobody comes back to them on the issue. So if possible, and I do appreciate the police are very busy, they're thin on numbers, but the public don't see that as their concern. You know, that's for obviously Police Scotland to address. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for that point. And yeah, you know, it's really disappointing for me to hear that our communities don't feel confident in reporting or indeed speaking to police officers across Angus. And actually we'd look to really address that through various different forums, community meetings and the engagement. Our community teams do a fantastic job. This report is absolutely detailed around some of the proactivity and the engagement that they do. So we will look to see how we continue to strengthen that and how we can ensure our communities do feel more confident within our services. Of course, there's a number of challenges around when we will attend incidents, when we won't attend them, proportionate responses to crime and updates, some of which is a change in our policing style, is the reality, but of course doesn't withstand the fact that people should be able to contact us, get the service that is deemed appropriate under that threat, risk and harm model, and then be reassured that we have documented their concerns and that we are considering how we're going to deal with those. So yeah, leave that with us. We will do a bit of work in that space. and I will, again, we'll look at our community confidence and satisfaction levels probably for the next committee and ensure we bring some high-level updates in relation to those.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener, but Councillor Speed took the words right out of my mouth about ASBOs, because I'm just so aware that we haven't had any for years. And I think that we're getting to the point when we really do need to have some of these more, well, just we need to have some of these. And if other places like Dundee are having them, then I think we need to be looking at this quite severely.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, you know, ultimately we're fully committed to working with partners, and we will do all that we can. There is legislation around antisocial behaviour orders, obviously, so we do need to meet the appropriate threshold. We do need to make sure we're considering that the application for those is right and proper. And again, we will definitely look at that, and the Chief Exec's commented on the kind of wider strategy, of course, we will completely support and engage in.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks. Just, you know, the shoplifting's on the up. We see on the reports that come through with cost of living and that. And I was just thinking, where, you know, you can't, a lot of the supermarkets you go in now, and after a certain time in the evening, it is only self-service checkouts now. And I can't help but think that there's a lot of situations where they'd be open to abuse, like people maybe not scanning items or putting fruit through is the wrong thing. And I just wondered, I don't think the police would be expected to enforce that kind of level, because the retailers, you know, basically shifting that responsibility over to the customer. But the reason I mention it is, do you think that isn't captured in the likes of these figures? And is that just the retail sector need to deal with that themselves with security cards and video technology? It's like a change, like the e-scooter thing, just a change in the way society is operating. But I think it's an avenue that's definitely open to you know, crime.
Yeah, thanks so much. And again, a question I've been asked across the other local authorities. The reality is the numbers we report on are what are reported to us. So all retailers will have a threshold for reporting. Some of those limits will be lower, some won't have a limit. And ultimately they will report to us when they deem it to be fit. We don't have a threshold on a crime, on us taking details of a crime. We will do and look at proportionate response to crime, so we might not always send officers depending on either the solvability factors or whether the CCTV, whether it's been witnessed and for things like this. But fundamentally, the numbers that you see in front of you are the numbers that have been reported to us. I guess the question you're asking me is it underreported? Yes, is the answer to that. And actually what we see across the country is a snapshot of probably what is taking place. But again, we are not in control of policies for you know, high-level supermarkets or low-level retailers. But that doesn't mean we won't engage with them. We engage obviously across the board in terms of crime prevention advice.
Thank you very much for that. Any more questions, comments? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Mine's as a comment if there are no further questions. First of all, I'd like to give my personal thanks to both the Police and the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for coming along ahead of this meeting to give us as elected members opportunity to have that one-to-one chat with them. It's much appreciated. Thank you very much. And also a very warm welcome to our new Chief Inspector, Grace Ewing. As has previously been mentioned by Councillor Speed and also Councillor Devine, I was also quite shocked to read that, as per the police report, there are currently no live antisocial behaviour orders, otherwise known as ASBOs, within Angus. This is something I've discussed with some of my other colleagues, as well as with our Vice Convener on the Housing Committee, and is something that we are going to look to discuss at our convener's briefing this Friday. As I mentioned in the report with the petition, what can we as a local authority do to perhaps help a bit more? Well, what can we do as a local authority to perhaps help the police with their policing? And if that is by helping with maybe having one or two or even some more ASBOs, then that gives them something to physically enforce because there's an antisocial behaviour order. So that is certainly something I'll be looking to. Yes, there's a lot of legislation, there's a lot of investigative work around it, but I think where it's appropriate, it should be used, and it's certainly an asset and a tool that we perhaps should be using more of in Angus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Speed.
Yep, thank you. Just to add to that, yeah, certainly what rings in my ears often is, you know, members of certainly my constituency, the Arbroath community, where they just do not feel that there's enough deterrent in place, and that, you know, people are perhaps just getting away with repeatedly hitting and targeting, whether it be shops, local community, neighbourhoods. I think our police are absolutely kind of working in difficult times, challenged by a lack of funding and resources as well, just like local council. So I think the key thing, as has been said, is working together. I certainly feel that where appropriate, we should, as a local authority, be exercising the powers that we do have, like I say, where appropriate, and I certainly think we need to take a much more robust approach at looking to do that.
Thank you very much for these comments. No more comments, no more questions. Is this report noted? It's noted. Well, thank you very much to the police and the fire brigade for coming along today, and feel free to go away now if you wish. Does anybody require a comfort break at this stage? Yes. Right, that seems to be quite appropriate, right? We will have
10 minutes.
A minute?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
John, can you stop the live stream, please?
Well, welcome back to this meeting of Scrutiny and Audit. Item 7, Angus Alive, the 2024-25 Q1 and 2 Performance Report. Alison Watson will introduce it.
Thank you, Convener. This report presents Angus Alive's performance for quarters 1 and 2 of 2024-25 in order for committee to review the governance and assurance arrangements in place. It's my pleasure to invite Kirsty Hunter, the Chief Executive of Angus Alive, to introduce her report and to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you, Convener. I'm really pleased to be here today to bring you our performance report for quarters 1 and 2 of 2024-25. The Angus Alive team has continued to work very hard delivering activities, events and services across all 5 areas of the charity to change lives by inspiring healthy, active and creative lifestyle choices during the first half of the current year. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each member of our team for their dedication and commitment, which is showcased in the report before you today through the key performance indicators and highlight sections, which summarise key achievements from the 1st of April until the 30th of September 2024. You will note that we continue to develop new initiatives, implement new technology, refurbish spaces and work effectively with partners to improve our offering. I hope that you found it interesting and helpful to review the charity's achievements and see the breadth of activities and events being delivered by our team across the county for both local communities as well as visitors to the area to enjoy.
That you?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Well, has anybody got any questions to the report? We've got Councillor Gregg and then Councillor Gall. It's getting late. Any more? Councillor Speed, Councillor Shepherd. Right. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I have a couple of questions, but I'll stick with just the one for just now. Looking at the report, one thing that stood out to me was there's a lot of things going on, but not really many people taking part in them. For example, on page 109 of the combined papers for Countryside Adventure, for example, looking, for example, at the number of the number of activities versus number of activities attendance. So for quarter 1 and quarter 2, it's sitting at about 5.8 people per activity that you're putting on. And it's similar with the health walks. There's quite a lot of those, but relatively not actually that many people attending them. So how much do these events cost for Angus Alive to run versus their attendance? So are they actually value for money, or would it be worth perhaps reducing some of the events numbers so that there's actually more people attending and getting more out of it? It's similar to the events that were put on with like the Websters, the Reach Hall and things. Your target is 65% and we're only sitting at 50-51, so they're not being particularly utilised. So can you give us a bit more information about that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. And in terms of cost to run, we did ask for questions prior to the session if there were any in terms of detail. So I'll have to take that part of the question away and come back to you with regards to that. However, with taking apart the question in terms of the number of activities versus the attendances, in quarter 1, we had run a number of activities which were new activities, and that's something that we encourage the team to do, to look at different ways of engaging people in the types of service that they offer and bringing new and different people into, whether it's the outdoors, for example, within Countryside or into the theatre. I think that what we've then seen, if you look at then quarter 2, is we've then refined the activities. So the team did look at the data and saw how we had performed in the first quarter, reacted to that really quickly and adjusted the programme for quarter 2 to find a better balance to that programme. And I would encourage the team to continue to do that in the future as well. It's really important that we do continue to challenge ourselves to look at different ways of offering activities and bringing people to the services that we offer. Within the theatre space specifically, I would actually highlight that the level of capacity at performances is looking good when you look at industry averages for performances. That's an average across all different shows that we put on. And there are some shows that are very well attended at capacity, at full capacity, or at very high capacity. There obviously are others that we will offer which are not as well attended, and that will result in a more balanced average attendance. What I can say is that we have a specific programming team that are looking at the activities that we are bringing into the theatre, or the shows and performances that we're bringing into the theatre. They're working really closely with promoters to look at the shows and performances that work well and those that maybe haven't been quite so well attended. They're trying to understand across Angus what are the types of performance that members of the public, both from the local area but also those that are travelling from Aberdeenshire, Aberdeen and Dundee to the Webster Theatre, the Reid Hall in particular, to enjoy different types of performances that we're now putting on in both of those venues. And it's been really, really successful. So theatre ticket sales are significantly up in terms of how the Webster Memorial Theatre and also the Reid Hall performances are delivering for us. So I think that whilst that figure, when you look at it in isolation and you think about it compared to other types of activities, may seem low, actually when it's considered within the context of that industry, it's actually a really strong performance, but it's something that we are actively looking to increase. And as it says there, the target that we have is to move that figure higher across the average for performances. But I would reassure you that there are a number of performances which have been sellouts and hugely successful. But it's also important to remember that in terms of the breadth of shows that we put on, there's different types of audiences that will enjoy a performance, but that we might not expect that ever to sell out because of the nature of the type of show that it is. And I think it's still important to provide those opportunities to people because not everybody likes the same kind of thing. So obviously the theatre is staffed appropriately for the number of tickets that have been sold, and you're able to then modify what the cost to run those activities is. We're also working really closely with our teams that are bringing in the shows to look at what the splits are, and that's something which is being a lot more profitable to the organisation as well because of the way that we're working with producers and looking to ensure that Angus Alive and therefore the people of Angus are getting the best results that we can in terms of the income for the shows that come in, and then that income being able to be redeployed into the different activities that are offered across the organisation.
Thank you very much. That's a very thorough answer. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. It was just on page 127, as a Montrose member, it sits as an outliner compared to Forfar, Arbroath and Kerry. Is there a reason that Montrose is trickier to hire, or is there a, it's a big venue, it has good capacity, but I was kind of shocked to see how far away it is compared to the other three. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Gall, was it in terms of the number?
Sorry, yeah, it was just basically Montrose is significantly lower than all of the other three. The other three are kind of fairly on par, but Montrose is significantly lower. And I just wondered if there was a reason for that.
Yeah, so it's actually something that I've picked up with the team recently. So obviously during the COVID period, there were a number of our venues that were handed over to colleagues within the NHS to be used as vaccination centres, which was really, really important to do to support the vaccination effort across the county during that time. Montrose Town Hall was one of the last sites that we got back in terms of that activity. And what we have found is that there have been a number of new venues that have opened and operated within the Montrose area, and also our regular bookers who used to come to the town hall, due to the length of time after COVID, when we still were not able to provide that service because it was being utilised for a different purpose, they've gone elsewhere, and therefore we don't have really very many regular bookings at all at that particular venue. That's not something that we found at the Reid Hall, you know, you would think both of those venues were out during COVID, but the experience that we have found has been different in terms of those coming back online. People who regularly used to book the Montrose Town Hall have gone elsewhere and have not returned to that venue, whereas in the Reid Hall they have. So that would explain the main difference that we have in that space.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Convener. I was wondering about how you calculate the visitor numbers at the country parks. Like, I know Maniki Park, for example, it's got like multiple entrances. You know, you get cyclists using different ones. I just wonder how accurate they might be. Is it just like you do it for an hour? I was just wondering if you could also tell us about, I've heard in the press about the inflatable water sport kind of offering that's going to be coming to Maniki. I just thought I might like to hear a bit about that as well. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the visitor numbers, that's something that we, over the last 10 years, have developed quite significantly. There are now both car park counters and also people counters at the different entrances, and those take account in terms of the number of people, and they're connected by GPS. So it relays that information back. So actually it's very real time in terms of us being able to look at what the visitor figures are, and provides a much more accurate reading in terms of visitor numbers to the country parks than was ever there before. Historically, it was more like the way that you described it, where there were people doing counts for certain periods of time, and then that was being multiplied by factors and things. There is an average number assumed per car. Can't remember that off the top of my head, but it's not 4. I think it's probably around 2.5 or something like that. But that's based again on industry averages for number of people that would be expected to be arriving together for that kind of activity. In terms of the aqua park, so we're really excited about this new development. It's something that we have invested in through the investment fund that Angus Alive has created and then put money into, to make sure that we can both refurbish fitness suites, develop new offerings in our sports centres, like, for example, our Elevate studios that are working really, really well, but also not just within our sports centres, but also look to other areas. And the Aqua Park is one of the developments that we're delighted to be bringing to our country parks, specifically at Maniki Country Park. The team are working exceptionally hard at the moment to make sure that that is going to be in place and ready to roll from the start of May. So get yourselves ready to get down to Maniki. There are some really nice thick wetsuits, so don't worry about the Scottish weather, you will still be warm. There's no jellyfish or anything like that in the reservoir, so nice and safe and good space for people to utilise. And we're working really closely with a number of partners, like, for example, RLSS, to ensure that the water safety is absolutely up to industry standards and as good as it should be for this kind of adventure activity space. There are new porta cabins that are being brought in for changing facilities that will be right beside the water's edge, which I think will make sure that people are as comfortable as can be in an outdoor sort of environment for that type of activity. We're delighted to have been working with the local schools to name the Aqua Park, and they'll also be some of the first people that get the opportunity to take part and participate there. But yeah, if you've got any team building events or activities, then we would welcome visits by anyone and all. And I think that it should be a really exciting attraction for local people, but also hopefully something that brings in people from the surrounding areas and those that are travelling on holiday through Angus as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Speed.
Yep, thank you. Welcome back to Kirsty. Angus Alive, I think, like everybody else, has got its fair set of challenges, and I know that your teams have been working really hard to really see, improvements in terms of footfall and the type of activities that you provide. I guess, and I fully am aware of kind of the whole depth and breadth of what it is that you do. So don't just like always to pick out access office service, but for me it is really important because it is the gateway to the council services for the public and for those that do need a face-to-face service. So my first point is in relation to that, and I just wondered if you could perhaps just let us know if there is kind of any themes emerging in terms of the increase in football, which I welcome, because it does show that service, it demonstrates that it is needed. But is there any particular reasons? And also, in terms of reporting and recording, I think what's really important and what I'd like to see would be, I guess, the amount of time taken per kind of access office request or ask for assistance, because I know that often, if one of your team are sitting down with a member of the public to go through a housing application or a blue badge application, that could take a considerable amount of time. So it isn't just about the numbers, it's also about making sure that those teams are adequately resourced. My second point kind of leads on from the splash park, which it's been a pleasure to, I guess, work with some of your officers in terms of that kind of disability and inclusion offer within the Aqua Park. But that kind of leads me on to Arbroath Sports Centre and the swimming pool, the Sports Centre facility, and particularly the swimming pool. I wondered if you would be able to provide an update on that really vital asset within Arbroath and the kind of short to long-term maintenance plan for the pool, because I am aware it is a good number of years old, and so yeah, that's probably me, convener. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed, for the questions. So, taking them in turn, with regards to access footfall, as you noted in the report, it does describe the fact that there's been an increase in the number of access inquiries received over the 6-month period compared to the previous year. I've spoken with the team actually just yesterday, looking at those figures and also looking at the data that we have for the performance report. And it's interesting to note that it's not any one new, it's not a new thing that's driving that. It still is our sort of main three things. So housing applications, blue badge applications, and the other one has just gone straight out of my head, so apologies for that. But it's specifically those things that are people are coming in for, and there's also the Young Scot applications for bus passes as well. Sorry, that was the other one. I think, though, that we also have seen an increase in the number of visitors overall to the libraries. So I guess the two things probably have a bit of a correlation in terms of the numbers. But there's not, as I say, something new that's sudden, or one particular thing that has suddenly started to look as if there's more people in that area. The other thing that you pointed out there is about the amount of time taken for inquiries. And I guess what I would note for all members is that the inquiries that I've just listed are those that take the time. So just yesterday I was speaking to one of our team members at Montrose Library when I was visiting, and they were talking about the fact that a housing application can take, because it's quite a complex and involved process, up to an hour. So that individual can be tied up with a member of the public to ensure that they get the right kind of service and support that they need to make that application, and then hopefully get the assistance once that's been put through. But it can take up, as I say, up to an hour. So I know that the team have in the past recorded the amount of time taken, and certainly at various points in time, but I'll make sure from today to go away and check that that's still in place, and see how we can potentially include some of that information in future. With regards to the Aqua Park, I know that you have been involved with speaking to the team, and that it is something that they're looking at, how to make sure that whilst it is adventurous and by its nature quite complex activity, and with regards to making sure that people of different abilities are able to participate in that space, that there can still be an offering where that is possible. And I know that our Disability Inclusion Officer and also the Countryside Adventure team have spoken or are working with yourself to look at that, and it is something that is really important to do. It might not be that it's not the full breadth of all aspects of the entire park, but that hopefully they can utilise some parts of it and still have a really enjoyable experience. Finally, with regards to our both sports centre and the swimming pool there, I can confirm that we have been engaging with the Director of Infrastructure and Environment and also the Interim Service Leader for Assets to review the current position and future plans for each of the venues that we have a licence to occupy through the arrangements with Angus Council and Angus Alive. So that's for all of the buildings where we have that licence to occupy across the Angus Council property estate, and that our Growth Sports Centre will be one of the venues that is looked at as part of that piece of work. And I know, for example, that tomorrow morning both of the senior managers within Angus Alive are meeting with those people within Angus Council to kind of kick off that piece of work, because it's something I think is important for both organisations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Convener.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, and welcome back, Kirsty. It's great to see you. I was really pleased to see the rollout of the health walks. It's such a valuable initiative, and there's a lot of interest in this kind of health improvement intervention nationally. A couple of questions in this. Is this us rolled it out to all the areas now of Angus, gone from 19 to 102 walks, which is fantastic, and I know we've got a very diverse geography. And also in terms of the survey, I'm really quite interested. I don't know if that is available to see the results in that, because I'm really quite interested in how deep that went in terms of their feedback. The other side of that is the positive impact on freeing up services potentially if people are improving their health. I'm assuming that that survey, the results have gone into Health and Social Care Partnership or the Community Planning Partnership in terms of that overall prevention and early intervention agenda. But it raised more questions for me than it answered in terms of the positive impact, not just on the individual, but on the demand on services, for example. So anything you can give me on that, I'd be really grateful. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. And it also has highlighted that I forgot to answer part of Councillor Gregg's question earlier. So with regards to the health walk. So if you don't mind, I'll kind of wrap the two things in together. So our health walks are delivered by our health walk coordinator, which is a funded post. We worked with Paths for All to receive funding to support that post within Angus Alive. And they're also delivered by volunteers. And that coordinator helps to train up those volunteers and make sure that they are able to do that safely. And we're very grateful to all of our volunteers for coming forward and making sure that they can share that love and joy of and the health benefits of walking in outside spaces with other people that live in the local area. What I would highlight as well is that actually a number of our volunteer walk leaders initially started as participants within the programme and then have stepped forward to say, actually, I've enjoyed it so much and I now feel more confident I'd like to go through the training and be able to provide walks for other people to take part in and to enjoy. So in terms of the cost to deliver that was referred to by Councillor Gregg, actually it's a very low cost to deliver because we've received external funding and we have a volunteer team who are delivering those walks. What that does mean is, I guess, coming back to your question, Councillor Bell, two things. One, we're reliant on where those volunteers are based and are comfortable and confident to do the walks. But I do know, having spoken with the team recently, that there is a good range of both levels of walk and also areas within the county that are now covered. Over the last couple of years, we've been working to make, or maybe 2 to 3 years actually, working to make sure that that's possible. And the funded post is in place till end of this calendar year. So that's something that we've got our eye on, and we'll be looking at how that progresses in future. In terms of the specifics around where it is covered and isn't covered, I could get somebody from the team to reach out to you, and they would also be able to advise whether we can share any of the information in terms of the survey. What I can say is that our health and wellbeing lead, who is within the organisation, is linking exceptionally closely with our health and social care partner colleagues. There's also the wider programme of health and wellbeing activity that's going into place across centres. Just yesterday I was in Montrose Sports Centre, and one of the Be Active Live Well programmes was being set up in one of the different studio areas there. Just after that, there were NHS colleagues who were coming in to deliver some of the physio programme from within the sports centre environment. And all of those things have come from the Angus Prevention and Proactive Care project that was joint funded by Angus Council, Angus Alive and Angus Health and Social Care Partnership. Delighted to say that we also have then, following the end of that initial funding, which comes to an end at the end of March this year, we've now managed to secure some additional funding working with the Teesside Health Care Fund and others to look at extending those posts for a further 2 years. So that's really exciting news for us, and it means that we can continue to embed the programme across those different services and really see the difference that it makes, because like you were saying, when the information is then fed back through in terms of evidence, it really helps to demonstrate what an impact it's having. And if you don't start to turn the tap off, then the bucket keeps getting full at the other end. And when I was at the national meeting of all the Culture, Sport and Leisure Trust in Scotland at the start of February, and what we were speaking with Active Scotland Division and also with Public Health Scotland, it was really interesting to hear that the new, or the public health referral standards, which have been in place now for a few years, are starting to really work very effectively, but also that the new physical activity framework that's been launched last October is something that I think the work that we're already doing here in Angus with the sport and physical activity framework is starting to show real dividends, and we're maybe a little bit ahead of the curve on that one. So I think that that's really positive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beattie.
Yeah, a very quick question, Kirsty. Lend and Mend service that we've got in Floffa, are plans to roll that out to other libraries? Because we all know how important it is to get football into our libraries to keep them vibrant.
So at the moment, there wouldn't be a plan to roll that out, just because we secured external funding through SLIC, so the Scottish Library Improvement Council, and their partnership with the John Lewis Foundation. So there was £1 million that they had secured to be utilised across Scotland, and we were really lucky to be one of 9 libraries across the nation that was successful to receive funding to bring a Lend and Mend hub in. At the same meeting that I was referring to, that was held at the start of February with colleagues from across the country, we also had the new Chief Executive of Scottish Library Information Council at that session, and she was talking about how successful that has been, and they are looking at whether there's opportunities to do something further. So at the moment, no plans, just because of the cost and investment that would take. However, watch this space, and I will be liaising with her to see whether Angus could be a recipient again in future.
Thank you. Councillor Cowdery.
Thank you very much. Yep. So for transparency, I'm on the Angus Alive board, and the aqua parks, really exciting prospect. And I know that there was a little bit of chat around the potential for refreshing the surrounding area in Maniki Park, just to make everything spick and span and sort of up to spec at the same time as the launch. I just wondered if you could let us know how that's going.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cowdery. So the team are working to, it's not street furniture because it's a park, but look at improving the park furniture. So that includes whether it's benches, bins, signage, making sure that it is invested in. We talked about the investment fund, so Angus Alive is putting funding not only towards the aqua park, but also to the investment of this, the park furniture. And we've already done some of the work, so some of the signage, you might have seen that there's the new water safety signage in the parks. It's obviously really important that whilst we're encouraging people to have great fun and be really safe with, obviously, lifeguards in that open water space, that we also are promoting that safety in open water message. And we work closely with actually our Fire Scotland colleagues to make sure that that's something that happens across Maniki, Crombie and also Forfar Loch as well. So yeah, it's a really good opportunity to make sure that when visitors come in that they have that first class experience all round, and it's something that is on order, shall we say.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Yeah, I wanted to go back to the theatres and venues. As we've already seen, Montrose is very underutilised. And I just wondered what scope could be made to increase what we're getting in Montrose, because obviously the Webster's Theatre is seen as a jewel in the crown. And now we seem to have the Reid Hall and Forfar getting, I'm going to use the term loosely, top-class acts, but in my opinion, they are top-class acts. But we don't seem to get that in Montrose, you know. But I'll give you just examples we've had in Forfar quite recently, Shawari Wadi, the Bay City Rollers. Well, that's all my era. So, and yeah, I mean, obviously, I would like to see something like that in Montrose. We've been given Neil Lennon, and depending on what persuasion your football is, you know, that might be seen as not a great thing. But you know what I mean. We're obviously not getting the same as what the Reid Hall and Forfar is. Can we?
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Stewart, for the question, and I'm delighted to hear that you've been enjoying the performances at the Reid Hall, even though I know you would prefer that they were at the Montrose Town Hall. I think that when our theatre and venues team are speaking with producers about bringing shows in, they're obviously talking to them about the different types of venues that we have and what those can offer, both in terms of the capacity, in terms of numbers of seats, or whether it has seated and standing capacity. So somewhere like the Reid Hall can be one or the other. I guess Montrose Town Hall could be one or the other as well. I think it would be fair to say that the challenge that we have at Montrose Town Hall is that while some shows have worked well there, so some of the talking heads conversations and some of the singing, when some of the other acts have gone there, hasn't actually performed as well in terms of the audience figures then coming in. So then it has made it harder to have sometimes those conversations with producers about bringing other shows. I think that the other thing that I need to be honest about is in terms of the upkeep of the venue. And I think it would be fair to say that Montrose Town Hall is probably an area which is needing investment, and that actually with that, if that was a performance space that we wanted collectively as a council and Angus Alive to be able to then look at taking that forward, it would need investment to make that as good a customer experience and also performance experience for the acts that are coming. So that's something that we have talked about with the team, but there would also be something that I'd be picking up with, as I said to Councillor Speed at the meeting, about venues and the places that we have a licence to occupy. So I think your question goes into a bigger area, but absolutely recognise what you're saying, and it's something that we are looking at.
Thank you very much. Is there any more questions? Oh, Ross Craig, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Another question, if you'd allow me. It's on page 130 of the combined papers in regards to customer feedback. Firstly, I have to say that it's really good to see that your number of compliments outstrip your number of complaints, because I think in most businesses and areas it's normally the other way around. People are very quick to complain about something and not really write so much in it and compliment on something. So that's a really good thing to see on there. With regards to the complaints, overall there don't appear to be that many, which is again another positive. And you've broken it down into the different business areas. But I was wondering, would it be possible in future to perhaps have that broken down a little bit further, even into general topics, so it's easy for us to sort of see generally what people are complaining about more? So if, for example, every single complaint was about staff, for example, then obviously that's an area of concern. But because it's all just generalised, so for me personally, I'd like to see a little bit more of a breakdown of that across the different business aspects. Is that possible?
Thanks, Councillor Gregg. And I think in terms of that, is it possible? That's something I can take away to have a look at, but I would expect that it should be possible. So if it isn't, I'll come back to you to explain why that is. Also, really good of you to kind of highlight the compliments. I think we were really keen to make sure that when we put in our customer feedback opportunities that we gave members of the public the chance to feed those compliments back, as well as if they had any complaints, because I think it's really important for the team. Yes, if there's complaints, we need to address those, and if they're highlighting things that there needs to be a resolution to, or something changed, or a learning or new training or something, then actually all feedback is welcome, because that's only how you learn and how you improve and develop things. But actually to receive compliments and to be able to say to the team, look, people really enjoyed this, or they thought that we did a really good job at something, is equally important. And I think people, as I said in my introduction, are working very hard across the team to try to provide the best services that they can within the financial envelope that's available. And I think that it's really nice when they do get that recognition from the people that they serve. And that's actually the best form of recognition, is from their own customers.
Thank you very much. Is there any more questions or any more? If not, sorry, councillors or comments. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. Very quickly, a couple of comments. Just welcome Kirsty back, and she's not been back very long, but my goodness, she's on top of her brief, is she not? Thank you for all the information you've given us today. I visited New Bigging and Maniki Primaries recently, and the children are very excited about the splash. They named it, and they're looking forward to it incredibly. It's one of the standouts for me is the Reid Hall success, and for me, I mean, I really wanted the Reid Hall to be used as a venue like this, and it is paying dividends throughout the community, or the economy, actually, because all the restaurants are doing very well on the evenings when there's events going on there. I've been round them, and they're really pleased about that, so really pleased indeed. And then over and above everything else, I think we're all aware of other authorities, other ALIOs having to close swimming pools, close libraries, and Angus Alive isn't. So we're so pleased about that. And thank you to all your team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Spade, would you want to comment? Sorry.
Okay?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, thank you. It was just to pick up in terms of the Access Office support. Do you know, I'm wondering if perhaps on the back of the offline and overlooked motion that I brought, where there was a commitment from the council to kind of ensure that we continue to provide face-to-face service, and there was a bit of promotion done around that. So it would maybe be interesting to kind of hear if maybe that's what's made a difference. Maybe there are teams that are working on the front line with people that are maybe now more aware of the service that, you know, the access offices provide. So it was just a kind of comment in response to that. And also, I guess, yeah, we all know how important sport, leisure and recreational activity is. It is crucial for our mental health and well-being, and it's certainly something that I've pressed into throughout my life. So I, you know, fully appreciate all that we do have within Angus, whether that be indoor or outdoor sports and leisure activities. And I just would say that I would welcome perhaps having a follow-up, not necessarily at the next meeting, but in between times with regards to that bit of work around looking at the kind of short to longer term maintenance plans of our assets. So a follow-up on that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Ronnie Proctor.
Thanks very much, Convener. Kirsty, like the others have said, welcome back to work. Great seeing you at a meeting last week. I'm a fellow director along with Councillor Devine and Councillor Cowdy. And I think Councillor Devine just hit the nail right in the head when she said that Angus Alive is managing to stay alive. We are not like some of our neighbouring alleys where are having to drastically reduce and cut and slash venues and places and raise costs quite a lot. I think we are keeping our heads well above water, and that's thanks to the team that you manage, and long may it continue. And hopefully that will maybe just bring this lengthy discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. It was just a very quick comment to touch on the fitness suite. Obviously, there was a huge investment, and that's paying huge dividends in a market where there's very strong private gyms. So that's only a good thing. So well done to the team for pulling that together, and that's a huge success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, if there's no more questions or comments, does the committee note the new arrangements of Angus Alive and note Angus Alive performance report? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Now, ask members in line with Standing Order 21S. They are happy to suspend standing orders beyond the 3-hour limit until the business has been dealt with. Is that agreed? Agreed? Thank you very much. Right. Next is item 8, external audit, annual audit plan, and we have Ian Lorimer to introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Convener, and good afternoon, members. Yeah, it's reached that point in the year where, having completed the budget work last week, we're now turning our attention to the annual accounts. A key part of that annual accounts process is the external audit of the accounts and the audit of the Council's wider governance and best value arrangement. So there's two reports, or two annexes to appendices to this report, covering the external audit plans for the Council and the Council's charity here for the committee's consideration. But I'll hand over to Mark Laird from Audit Scotland, who is going to talk to both of the plans. So I'll hand over to Mark. Thank you, Convener.
Welcome again, Mark.
Thanks, Convener. And thanks, Ian, as well. So yeah, the first appendix is our Council Annual Audit Plan for the 24-25 audit year. I'll take the paper as read, so I don't plan to go into too much detail on it, but obviously there are a few areas I'd like to highlight to members. Looking at the audit of the annual accounts in particular, you'll see Exhibit 1 on pages 6 and 7. We set out our materiality levels for the Council and for the group. As you'll be aware, materiality is calculated to assess the impact of audit adjustments on the financial statements. And for this year, it's been set at 2% of gross expenditure, which is in line with the previous year, and we see no reason to deviate from that. Exhibit 2 sets out the significant risks of material misstatement identified from our planning work. As you can see, we only have one. The risk of material misstatement due to fraud caused by management override of control. Now, this is a standard risk that's present in all of our audit plans, and it's required by ISA 240, as explained in the table there. And the right-hand column outlines the audit procedures planned to respond to that risk. Exhibit 3 on pages 9 and 10 outlines the makeup of the Council's group and the audit arrangements. Relatively speaking, the group is quite a simple one. And you'll see that we're the auditors of all the components, with the exception of Angus Alive, which is really quite helpful overall in relation to our communication and understanding of the audit procedures. The exhibit shows that there are no additional significant risks of material misstatement in the consolidation of the group. Page 11 outlines the wider scope areas that we consider, and we'll carry out work in these areas throughout the audit year and report in our annual audit report. On page 12, we also outline our approach to best value work. In line with the past couple of years, we'll carry out a thematic review during the year and produce a separate output to bring to committee. This year's theme is on service transformation. And we'll also look to summarise the findings of that review in our annual audit report, which will come to this committee in September. Finally, just Exhibit 4 on page 14 outlines our planned timetable for completion and our target dates for delivery. These have been agreed with Ian and his team. As you know, for last year's audit, we managed to achieve a sign-off prior to the end of September, which is in line with statutory deadlines, and that's the first time we've managed to do that post-pandemic, so that was really excellent, and there's no reason at this stage why we won't be able to do so again for 24-25. So that's all I plan to say on the Council plan. In relation to Exhibit 2 on the charitable trusts, we've got a very similar document outlining the approach and the plan for the year. Again, so I'll take that as read as well, and so I won't repeat myself in outlining the context, but I'm happy to take any questions on either of the papers. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Is there any questions on this report? Any comments on this report? That's grand. So does the committee... Does the committee note the proposed audit plan for A and B? Is that noted? No. Thank you very much. The next is the internal audit activity update, and we've got Catherine introducing it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. You'll have noticed that I am not Mrs Wiley. Mrs Wiley is unavailable today, so I have agreed to introduce her reports on her behalf. This item provides an update on our internal audit activity, and it sets out the progress made with internal audit plan for 24-25, and it includes findings from audit reports that have been issued since your last committee. Progress with the completion of internal audit and counter-fraud actions are also reflected in the report for members. You'll see that there have been 3 audits completed since the committee last met. The first is payroll continuous auditing for the period October to December 2024, and that audit identified no issues relating to duplicate or missing NI numbers. A review of the top 10 payments to employees identified 1 overpayment in October due to a system error, which has now been repaid in full. 4 of the top 10 payments to employees in November required some investigation. 3 were explained satisfactorily, and the other was an overpayment which had been due to a timesheet being processed twice in error. Steps will be taken to recover that payment, and learning has been taken. The level of assurance overall is comprehensive. The second audit in the report is creditors' continuous auditing for the period October to December 2024. That identified 15 duplicate payments totalling nearly £17,000 made in October, 1 in November for £334, and 2 in December totalling £117. £1,082. It is important to note that some overpayments had already been identified by the services prior to the audit taking place. By the beginning of February 2025, £16,700 had been recovered in total, with the recovery of the remainder being pursued. The level of assurance is substantial. The final audit report for this cycle is on the purchase ledger invoice processing and authorisation for early years, which was given a comprehensive assurance rating, with all of the key control objectives reviewed having been assessed as adequate, effective and efficient. There are no audit recommendations required in that report. From page 182 of your papers, the report provides an update on the remaining internal audit and counter fraud actions as of the date 24th of February 2025. There are 49 internal audit actions outstanding at that date. 24 have passed the deadline for completion but are underway. All but one of the overdue actions relate to the performance management and risk management audits, which were completed in 2024 and resulted in a number of actions that were to be completed across all services. The due date for the completion of those actions was the 31st of January and the 21st of February 2025. There is one priority 2 action which is noted as overdue from the 2022-23 audit year. That arose from the audit report 22-13 payroll, which was completed in August 2023. I'm pleased that since the reports for this committee were finalised, that action has now been closed, and I have Linda Thompson available here to provide a very short verbal update to committee. Only one counter-fraud action remained outstanding as of the 24th of February. If it's okay, Convener, I'll hand over to Linda, who will give a very short update on that item. Thank you.
That's okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we've been very focused on payroll, as you can tell from some of the update you've just received. And at the time when the actions were produced from that audit, we were concerned about resilience in the team and our ability to provide the data needed. We did take immediate action. We brought in the skills that we needed. We developed reports for services, which have been circulating for a year now. We've gone through our own service review process, and we've introduced some of the digital solutions that will help us to provide more reliable data and carry out some of the checks that previously weren't able to be conducted in any other than a manual fashion. The one part of the work that we only just completed at the end of February was the introduction of our digital sickness absence process, which is now embedded in our HR and payroll system. So that took some time to bring about. We prioritised some other digital work ahead of it, which is why it kept taking longer to be completed, but I'm really pleased to say it is complete now. We've done lots of introductory sessions across the workplace, and feedback has already been very positive about how easy that is. So we're hopeful that will help us improve the data even further. So as was mentioned, that one is actually now complete.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any questions on this report? Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Convener. Just on the 15 duplicate payments, I was just wondering if we could have, maybe not now, but a further breakdown of them, just to see if there was a pattern within that, because it just seemed high compared to the other months. Just to put it as ease that there's nothing. Thanks.
I'm happy to ask Mrs Wiley to circulate that information to members. They will have it obviously as part of their paperwork, so happy to do that. Thank you.
Any more questions? Any comments? No comments. So, the committee note this report. Noted. Thank you. Report number 10. The report relevant to the works of the Scrutiny and Audit Committee. And we've got Catherine again introducing it.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is a periodic report. Members will be familiar with the format and the layout. So the reports that are listed here have already been submitted to other Angus Council committees, to full council and partner bodies. I should highlight for accuracy that on page 196, last row, states that the ADP's annual report called at the IJB in December last year, and in fact, due to a scheduling matter, that called on the 26th of February this year. I'm obliged to a member of the committee for drawing this to our attention before we met today. Thank you.
Has anybody got any questions on this report? Any comments on this report? The committee noting it. Okay, thank you. The one we're looking for. Number 11, the Regulation Investigatory Powers Scotland Act 2000 Quarterly Report. Alison Finlay is going to introduce it.
Thank you, Convener. So this report prevents the quarterly update on applications for covert surveillance and advises that there have been none. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Is there any questions? Any comments? And the committee note this report. Thank you. That is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, and thank you all for attending.
John, can we stop the live stream, please?